Hey there, welcome back to Rule of Two Review, and oh my god, how about that freaking Nintendo? There has been so much going on with Nintendo, of course. We all know about it. I've been talking about it. Everyone's been talking about it. People have been podcasting about it. Nintendo's been talking about it. It's just been insane these last couple of days. And while the Nintendo news train is rolling, there's a lot of things that I kind of want to talk about with you guys. I've got a couple of topics that I want to broach in the upcoming few videos. I don't want it to seem too much like Nintendo overload, but I realize it's also kind of silly because most of what I do on Rule of Two Review is Nintendo news. Not entirely. I'm very proud of the fact that I talk about Sony and the PlayStation, Xbox, and PC, and basically everything in gaming. It is part of my goal, but of course I'm a huge Nintendo fan. I think most of you guys out there following Rule of Two Review are obviously also big Nintendo fans too, so hopefully no one minds that the next couple of videos I'm going to discuss different facets of this news now that we've actually had hard news about some of the immediate future for Nintendo to discuss, even though a lot of it's still steeped in rumor because somehow Nintendo's one of the only companies that can reveal a flood of information that still feels like it's not actually information yet. Like there's no actual news, but there is news at the same time. It's really weird. It's something that only Nintendo can kind of pull off. Anyway, the main thing that I want to discuss in this topic for you guys today is kind of the biggest piece of news, I think. Some people may argue that the biggest piece of news out of yesterday's info is Zelda and the delay of Zelda for the Wii U and the fact that it's being also ported to the NX to get a dual release just like Twilight Princess. That is huge news. It's very mammoth news, actually. But for me, the bigger piece of news is the Nintendo NX and the reveal of the launch, not so much the launch date, but that launch window. So basically all they've said so far is that the Nintendo NX is going to launch in March 2017. So yes, March, that's like 10 months away, which is really crazy to think. Well, coming up on 10 months, like 11 months, 10 months, a year, basically. It's quite a ways away. A lot of us were starting to feel like it really was going to be launching this year by the end of 2016. I initially thought that it never would, and it definitely should, that it never would launch in 2016, and that it definitely should launch in 2017. But, of course, as you've heard me say over this past year, more and more info and rumors started to make it sound like, there could be a good chance that it was going to launch this year in 2016. However, that turned out not to be the case, as they've confirmed March 2017. Very, very strange for it to release in a late winter, early spring kind of time frame, the end of the first quarter there in March. Very, very unique. Typically, hardware launches, especially these last couple of years and couple of console generation cycles, they've been releasing in the holiday, in usually November. Actually, I think almost exclusively in November. I can't remember the PlayStation 2. PlayStation 2 could have been like September, October time, but for sure the GameCube and original Xbox were November, the 360, the Wii, PlayStation 3, November, Wii U, November, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, November. Everything has been November for the last now 3 console changes. Nintendo will be the first company in a very, very long time to release their brand new next generation machine at a month that isn't a holiday and that isn't in that November time frame, in time for Black Friday and all this stuff. It's March. That's so weird, but I also think it's not that weird. I kind of think it's pretty brilliant. So I want to just quickly go over some of the reasons why I think that it's smart that Nintendo is doing this, why they've chosen to do it, and why this could hopefully turn out to be a good decision. So I was on the podcast with Terminator Juice and Mrs. T yesterday. Of course, I've been doing a lot of podcasts with those guys. I'm a regular on The Juice is Loose now, so hopefully no one's getting sick of hearing me chat with those guys, but I love it. They've got smart opinions to share, good buddies of mine, so I'm enjoying doing that. And while I was chatting with them yesterday, we went over some of these ideas on what's going on with the Nintendo NX, and I had a couple of revelatory ideas. Some of them I already had, some of them were new through that conversation. And when you think about March, when you think about the holiday, you think, oh, okay, this is the time people are supposed to spend money. People are supposed to buy gifts for their friends and their loved ones. People are buying gifts for themselves a lot of times because there's so many crazy deals. You have deals leading up to Black Friday. You have Black Friday itself. You have the Cyber Monday. You have the time before Christmas. You have the Christmas Day sales. You got the New Year's sales. It's insane. There's so much going on with sales, and all these companies and retailers are just busting their ass to get you to come in and buy their product, and all these companies are busting their ass to sell you their product. So there's a lot of reasons for people to spend their money, especially in the gaming world, because it's like in the tech industry, sort of. A lot of reasons for us to spend our money during the holiday. And because of that, that's why, of course, typically console manufacturers are releasing their next generation hardware during that time. And when you look at Nintendo releasing their NX, their next console in March, what I think kind of happens is they kind of are filling the gap. There's a period of time that we all kind of know is typically filled with like a gaming drought, you could say, and it's really those couple of months after the holidays, because it's during the holidays that everyone's just blowing their load and they have all their best games and all the new hardware and all the fancy tricks are coming out around that time. Just like this year, we're expected to get the PlayStation 4K or 4.5. PlayStation VR is probably going to be launching that time, so 2 new pieces of hardware probably coming out. Everyone's big holiday games are going to be coming out. And because of that, those couple of months after the holiday are usually very dead for gaming. And Nintendo is very smartly positioning themselves in a period where, hey, we may typically not be used to spending money, at this time in the couple of months after Christmas. And people might usually get sick of the fact that, hey, I've got nothing to play. It's great when November and October rolls around because I got all these games and new things to play, and it's really great, and it keeps me satisfied for a couple of months, but then that goes away, and all of a sudden, I got no new games to play for a while. People start looking into their backlogs, which actually is a very good thing to do, but we all start looking into our backlogs and wondering when the next good thing is, and we're just chomping at the bit for every little release date as it slowly comes at us through the spring and the summer. Nintendo is not only releasing, like a big product, like a game like Zelda, for example, during this time, they're releasing their next machine. And I think that the gaming public, Nintendo fans and the gaming public alike, are going to feel pretty ready to pick up a brand new console, especially a brand new Nintendo console, in March, just a couple of months after Christmas, when people typically don't have games coming out and things to look forward to playing. I mean, Zelda alone would have been a really smart decision. If the NX wasn't part of this and it was just like, oh, Legend of Zelda is going to come out in March of any given year, it'd be like, wow, you'd think it should launch in November, but it's actually brilliant to launch at that time because everyone would be excited to play that new Zelda, and it's entirely possible that more people would buy that game, or in this case, the NX, a new system, because it isn't competing for your gaming dollar and for the mind share of gamers in the industry during the holidays when everyone else is releasing all this shit. And typically it's all very great, it's hard to know what to buy. Yeah, do I buy this game? Do I buy Uncharted 7? Or do I buy Halo 14? Or Gears of War 93? Like, I don't know, there's all these games come out on the same day. I don't know what to buy. So it's very hard for all of these games to get the proper sales because a lot of times gamers have to pick and choose. And that's both a great thing and an unfortunate thing. Nintendo's kind of avoiding that by releasing their console during this period. Also, because people spend so much money during the holidays, and this year's an example where people may be spending hundreds of dollars on a PlayStation 4.5 and hundreds of dollars on a PlayStation VR, 2 new pieces of hardware that are coming out. A lot of times people get broke and they can't buy anything for a very, very long time. And for a lot of people, a very, very long time could be 3 or 4 months. And what's happening 3 or 4 months after the holidays and Black Friday and Christmas? Well, the Nintendo NX is apparently launching. And hey, I may spend a whole bunch of money, a couple $100, back in November. Here comes March again, and damn, I got all my money back. I've been working my job. I've been making my money. Mrs. T brought up a great point. This is tax time. The first couple of months of the year, here in North America at least, is tax time. That's when we all start getting our tax refunds. And what are we going to blow this extra money on? I got to buy something great that I normally wouldn't buy for myself. Well, there's a brand new Nintendo NX and a Legend of Zelda. Go and pick that shit up for $300 or $400, and gamers are going to be pretty happy. However, the good news for the Nintendo NX doesn't even stop there. Another revelatory piece of news, or information I should say, that we kind of stumbled across when discussing this on the podcast yesterday was the timing for the rest of the year. What releasing a console in March does for you and your new machine throughout the rest of that given year. So we're at the point where March 2017 rolls around. Nintendo releases the NX. Let's say it's a pretty good to huge hit. Even if it's just like a mediocre hit, sells a couple million units in that first month. That's solid. That's not like, mind-blowing PlayStation 4 numbers, but that would be pretty good if it does a couple million in the first month or two. So it's doing pretty well. It's hopefully going to be very well received. Everyone loves Zelda. Everyone loves what other new games are coming out for the system around that time. And what happens just a couple of months after March? It's E3. And so we all know Nintendo is kind of, shunning E3 this year, and that may be setting up a trend that continues in the future. So maybe Nintendo has even less of a presence or bypasses E3 altogether next year in June. But maybe they're only shunning it this year because they have to with what's happening with the secrecy of the NX. So it's entirely possible, and if they're smart, they'll do this. They'll release that NX in March. Hopefully it's a hit and everyone is loving it and talking well about it and it's selling very well. And then, oh my God, you have an E3 to follow your system launch just 3 months later. They could use that E3 to have, just like I claimed yesterday on the podcast, potentially the best E3 they've ever had, maybe the best E3 any company has ever had, because all they'd be able to do in that first E3 3 months after the NX launches is just pimp the NX. Here's all the new games. Here's all our holiday plans. Here's, if they're making a new Mario, here's the new Mario. If they're actually making a Metroid, here's Metroid. Here's the Animal Crossing. Here's a new IP. Here's Retro's games. Here's Next Level's game. Here's all these third-party stuff. Here's Bayonetta 3. I mean, I'm just making stuff up at this point, of course, but those are the kinds of things that if these games like that are really in the works and new surprises are really in the works for the NX within that first year or two, that first E3 coming just months on the heels of the success of a brand new Nintendo console release, they could be just knocking it out of the park, man. They'd be getting Fenway home runs like nobody's business. It could be so exciting. Like I said, potentially could be the best E3 in Nintendo's history, could be the best E3 in the convention's history. Of course, that's if they do come back full force to E3 next year. That may not be a plan at this point, but I'm willing to bet that it is a plan because they'd be silly not to take advantage of the way it works out time-wise with the release of the NX. And the very last thing I want to bring up when it comes to the NX releasing in March and why it could be smart is the holiday time. Something else, again, we discussed on the podcast yesterday. I know I keep referencing that, but a lot of these ideas, like I said, they kind of came organically out of that conversation we had. And you release your system in March. Yes, 3 months later, you get E3. That's huge. But 6 months after that, you get the new holiday. You get 2017's holiday time, September, October, November, and Christmas, Black Friday. All these things are happening. And the fact that Nintendo has this amazing snowball hill in front of them. They have this tiny little snowball right now, which is the NX and the idea of the NX that no one really knows about. It's a big mystery, which means it's a small snowball. But all of a sudden, early in the year, they get to show us what it is. We get excited about it. The games look great. The snowball gets bigger. And now the system launches in March, and it's a huge hit. I mean, I'm guessing it's a huge hit. It's exciting. It's a brand new console. Everyone is hopefully loving it. Zelda comes out. The snowball's pretty big, and now they're at the top of a huge hill. They push that huge snowball off of that hill. They're going to roll right into E3. That snowball's getting pretty goddamn big. And then they roll from E3, a couple of game releases, hopefully, all the way into that holiday 2017. Oh my God, that snowball is the size of a freaking truck. It's a huge snowball that's just knocking everything down in its path. It's almost, you don't like the snowball metaphor? It's a domino effect. There's another metaphor. They just have this great domino of NX, boom, domino. E3, boom, domino. Holiday release, all these big games, boom, domino. All these things right in a row. So they use that first E3 to pump all of these games coming out for their holiday lineup. Let's say there's a brand new Mario that can come out for the first holiday after the NX releases. That's huge. Its first holiday isn't going to be the week that the system launches. It's going to be 9 months after it's launched. And I think that could potentially set a new precedence for how you can use holiday to the great success of your machine. It's still ultimately great for companies to release these machines in November, and maybe the PlayStation 5 and Xbox 2, whatever, ends up doing the same thing. Maybe Nintendo's machine after the NX, they go back to holidays and they go back to November. And it would be smart for them to do that. But considering they're not delaying it, but considering they're releasing it after what we expected in November and they're releasing it in March, this, I think, is the huge benefit. You follow it up with E3 3 months later, you pump all the games you're going to release for holiday 2017, and I bet they're going to have some pretty big kick-ass games. Maybe Luigi's Mansion 3 really is a game, and that comes out for holiday. Maybe Metroid is actually coming soon, and we get a brand new Mario, a brand new Metroid, Luigi's Mansion 3, all in holiday, 9 months after your system is launched. That is awesome. That's all very, very exciting. And a lot of this is speculative, of course, because I used a lot of game titles as my examples for E3 and the holiday. And of course, we don't know if any of that shit's true. I mean, I was just saying the most exciting game titles I could think of. I'm painting this picture of what could happen in a best case scenario. And I think that we're going to get something pretty similar to that. We're probably not going to get 9 amazing AAA, oh my God, types of games. But if we get half of that spreads out between that E3 summertime and holiday 2017, that's still pretty great. And I think that's going to bode very, very well for the NX, especially if there's also some repaired third-party relationships that are giving us some third-party games to also be playing on the NX throughout this time, not just Nintendo's games. Things could be looking really, really bright based off of this random and unique March release time for the Nintendo NX. So, of course, again, like I said, this is all speculative. I'm going to wrap this up saying this is all speculative. You know, none of this could turn out to be true. The NX might be a flop. Maybe none of us like it. Maybe even if we do like it, it still turns out to just not sell very well like the Wii U did. And so maybe none of this comes true. Maybe they're not coming to E3. Maybe they only have a couple of games ready for holiday next year. Hopefully it's not that bad, worst case scenario, but we have to consider that it could work out that way. However, I don't think so. I feel pretty good about this. I know it sucks that we have to wait so long. I know it sucks that we got this bad news, and I wish it wasn't that way. But all things considered, I'm willing to bet that there's going to be some great things coming for the NX and for Nintendo once they release it in March. And if they, capitalize on E3 and they capitalize on that first holiday right after your system is launched, really cool things could be happening for the NX. So that's my kind of positive perspective. I hope that that's really what happens. And tell me, of course, what you guys think. Does this make sense? Do you feel better about the March release than you did before? Did you already like the idea of a March release? Are you still super down on it and think it's the dumbest shit Nintendo ever could have done was to miss the holiday this year and release it in March of all months? What the hell are they thinking? Share your thoughts and your opinions about that stuff below. Thanks, of course, for tuning in, guys. You can keep an eye out for quite a few more Nintendo videos over the next couple of days. I have, like I said, a couple of topics that I want to chat with you guys about over the next few videos. So hopefully you guys are into that. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Thanks as always for tuning in. This is Rob of Rule 2 Review, and I'll catch you guys, of course, next time on another video.